can't hear. I think you just saw how we did this with Ms. Kaufman, so we'll go through the same process. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Are you the same Lisa Stuck who pre-filed testimony and exhibits in this matter?
I am.
You have corrections to your testimony?
I have no corrections. I do have a little bit of addition regarding the soil.
Can you give us a sense of what the addition is?
Well, in my testimony, I called the soil gumbo, which is what my husband always calls it. And as the hearings have went on, I did more investigation on what exactly our soil is made of, and I have that information, the scientific information of how easily compacted our field can become, and that's what I have.
Okay. It sounds more like a correction.
Okay.
So we'll let you elaborate on that, but again, this is largely confined to testimony already filed. If asked the same questions here today, would you provide substantially the same answers?
Yes.
Would you like to move admission of your pre-filed testimony and exhibits?
Yes, I would.
Are there objections? Seeing none, the board will admit and give the weight due. Before we allow the parties to cross-examine, if you want to go ahead and elaborate briefly, and then we'll turn you over to the parties.
Sure. I would like to talk about the tile I sent in the map, so I'll wait until those maps come up. But I did do some investigation on what kind of soil our field has. Like I said, my husband always called it gumbo, and I just didn't think anything of it. According to the Schneider Beacon, on this parcel, it's mostly Brownton silty clay loam and Webster clay loam. Webster clay consists of very deep, poorly drained, moderately permeable soils formed in glacial till. Brownton's series of clay consists of very deep, poorly drained soils that form in clay glacial sediments associated with lakes. The density of clay is the cause of the two biggest drawbacks of clay loam. When it is very wet, it swells to retain water, which makes it very difficult to work with. Over time, this poor drainage can stunt plant growth. Dry clay shrinks, but stays packed, forming dense clods and cracking soil surface. Clay soil retains a lot of water. This could become a problem when rain falls because heavy soil makes it difficult for water to drain away. Clay soil is very heavy and difficult to work with, especially when wet, and can also be compacted when wet. One website said you should even avoid walking on this soil when it's wet. We do not work the soil until it's completely dry, otherwise you fight the compaction for years. When our other fields are ready, this field usually takes 2 to 3 days longer before it is dried out.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. He just stole my first question. So what exactly is your concern about your soil and your ground now that you have this new information?
It's very concerning. As I said, when all our other fields are ready, we have to wait 2 to 3 days before we can even go into this field to do anything. And if they go through this field with the pipeline, contractors are going to come from other states. I was told that by a land agent because Iowa does not have people who know how to lay pipelines of this magnitude. And they are going to be here, and they are going to be here to make money. And I'm sure that they have quotas that they have to meet day by day. I cannot imagine that they are going to sit and wait until this field is completely dried out the way it should be to not damage our soil.
And I assume because of that type of soil and its characteristics that you have some tile there?
We have quite a bit of tile, and I did send those maps. I submitted them over the weekend.
Mr. Chair, may we bring those up on the screen?
I have copies here if do you want to make copies and send them around or? Okay. They're chicken scratches, but that's what we have for maps. Some of the tile is clay. It's very old tile, so when you disturb it, it's just going to crumble. The newer tile that we've had put in is plastic tile. So, but it is quite, if you continue going, there is more substantial, right? Go down a little bit more. No, up, I mean. Okay, right there, the proposed pipeline is gonna come about where that N is and go diagonal through our farm. And all that is tile.
Okay. For the record, does this exhibit have an exhibit number so we can refer to it?
I sent in 4 sheets.
Looks like. If you go to the top, I think it was stuck exhibit 1, direct exhibit 1.
Stuck exhibit 2 tile map.
Thank you. Did you talk to any Summit land agents about your concerns about your soil and your tile?
No, the first land agent we had come to our house, she brought the first proposal and she said she had to hand deliver it. We told her then to put down not to bother us again. We were not interested in this. No amount of money could incite us to allow this pipeline on our property. And she was not the last agent that we saw, unfortunately. But no, we did not talk to any agents about anything because we had no intention of signing.
Okay. You said some of this tile is quite old and it's a clay tile. How deep is it, do you know?
Well, I asked my husband that before I came up, and we're not real sure how deep that is. And as he says, over time, tile kind of moves up a little bit. So we're not sure. And that tile, as you can see, that was our map we got from the tiler, and it was all done on notebook paper.
Okay. I think you said in your written testimony that the pipeline would be fairly close to your residence. Do you know how far?
Yes. I don't know. I was hoping they could pull it up. Do you have the KMZ maps with the pipeline? That was one of my questions. It's not far. And our son is hoping there's a house on the farmstead. He is hoping to fix that house up and live out there once he gets done with college.
Okay. So no one's living there now?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay. What do you know about the emergency management personnel who would be called if there were a rupture there on that site?
Well, I know quite a bit about it. Both of my sons are on the Dallas Volunteer Fire Department. And my youngest son is an EMT at Van Diest Hospital, and he's going to school to be a paramedic. So anytime there would be a call when the pipeline breaks, it's not a matter of if. In Wright County, they do an all-call for Wright County, and all the first responders come. We just had that happen recently in Dallas with our grain elevator. They have no training. The Summit has come and met with the fire association, but there was no training done. All they told them was that they would buy them equipment, but they don't know what equipment. And it's all volunteer, like I said. So these are, and the situation of shelter in place, or at some meetings we've been told that the first responders will just have to set a boundary to where the oxygen starts to get lower, and just set a boundary and wait for hazmat to come, which is located here in Fort Dodge, would be our hazmat. And I know for a fact that they're not going to stand outside the boundary and let people die inside. If they can go in and get people out, they're going to try. And terrifies me.
Yeah. How far would Fort Dodge be from your location?
About 45 minutes.
How close does the pipeline go to the city of Dallas?
Approximately half a mile. And if it would break close to the town, and the wind is in the right direction, the town would be. That was one, comment that Mr. Powell said that, they try to go in areas where there isn't a high consequence. But, Dallas may not have thousands of people, but it has hundreds of people, and all of them are important. This Dallas swimming pool is on that side of town by the pipeline. It would be a tragedy if that happens.
Yeah, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Whippel, your card was up. No questions. Ms. Gruenhagen.
Good morning, Mrs. Stuck.
Good morning.
My name is Chris Gruenhagen, and I'm representing the Iowa Farm Bureau, and I just have a few questions for you, if you don't mind. You were talking to Mr. Taylor about wet areas and a lot of tiling on your property. Have any areas on either of your parcels been determined to be a farmed wetland?
Excuse me, could be what?
Have any of the parcels been determined to be a farmed wetland?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, very good. And you talk about in your testimony, I think on page 3, with some concern about the scope of the easement and the placement on your property.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
If the permit is approved, would you want the easement to specifically reference where that easement is at on your property?
Well, if the permit is given and they're allowed to steal our land, then yes, we need to sit down and have very specific talks with what is going on before they go in and do anything.
Did you receive a copy of your Exhibit H?
I did.
Okay.
Actually, I believe I returned those back to the law group, the first ones. We refused them. So then I printed off the one that was submitted to the IUB. So yes, I do have a copy of the easement, but as a lay person, all I can see is that it's all in Summit's favor, that we don't have any rights. And we were told we had no rights at a Board of Supervisors meeting. 2 Summit representatives said that if we did not sign a voluntary easement, that they could come in and do whatever they wanted with our land. When IUB approves the permit, they would come in and do an Exhibit H and take the land, and we would have no say in it. And that is why it's so important to sign a voluntary easement.
Do you understand that this board can determine what limitations are placed on that?
I do. I hope the board denies the permit.
Do you understand that they can also place limitations on what the eminent domain and what the easement is?
I do. I know they have a lot of power.
Okay. And so would you like that easement to specifically identify where the route is and where that easement is on your property?
Yes.
Would you also like that easement to identify how that property can be accessed?
Yes, because where the pipeline is going is landlocked, so they will have to ruin crops. If there's a problem, they're going to have to drive through our field to get to it.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Your Honor, just for clarification, the Exhibit 2 that she offered of the tile maps, was that entered into evidence at the beginning, or does she need to offer that as a hearing exhibit?
No, that was admitted at the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Hayek?
Hey, Ms. Stuck. Hi. Do you have other pipelines on your property?
We do not.
And could you just tell me your experience with the land agents and the Summit representatives you've had with?
Sure. We've had several land agents. The amount of times that they say they've tried to contact us, I believe, is very exaggerated. Because when they would call and leave a message, I would block their number. And we had one land agent Pat Patterson, who must have figured out I blocked his number because then he used his wife's phone to call us, and my son was home alone, and we have several friends with the last name of Patterson, so he answered it, and it was the land agent. So he even used different phones to contact us. We had them pull in one time, and he cornered my husband. My husband said, I'm not interested. Then the land agent went over to our two sons and said, well, you will be taking over this and have this, so we want to talk to you. And they said, we are not interested. And they left. We came into our living room one day and saw a land agent looking in our window. Apparently he had knocked on our door and we didn't answer, so I don't know if he was seeing if we were hiding from him. We hollered, get out of here, and he got in his little out-of-state pickup and left. From then on, if I saw an out-of-state pickup pull in, I'd just go out on my step and tell him to leave. They had to drive right past a no carbon pipeline sign to get into our driveway. The phone calls, they said they left us voicemails, which I don't understand because we never gave them our cell phone number. And I know they have a job to do, and we have a friend that is a land agent in Texas, and that's what he says. They are to go out and get these signed, no matter what. Tell them whatever they need to know to get their name on the line. The summit representatives have bullied our Board of Supervisors, our Wright County and Franklin County. They have tried to do moratoriums, and summit representatives show up and say, if you do this, you are going to be sued. You're going to lose thousands, millions, billions of dollars. In our local newspaper, the headline was supervisors were intimidated gave in to Summit's threat of being sued for hundreds and billions of dollars, thousands of dollars. So they're at our local county level, stopping our supervisors from trying to protect us from this poisonous, hazardous, critical pipeline, because they don't want them to pass anything to protect the citizens of the county.
So have you researched and went to meetings regarding the hazardous pipeline?
Yes, our life has been consumed the last 2 years with this pipeline. We have went to meetings, we've done research, we've talked to other landowners. The only good thing that's come out of this situation is I have met some landowners that I never knew, and we are now friends because we all have stood together, and we are not going to sign an easement. They're going to have to steal our land, and that's basically what it is, which is against the Constitution. We have worked this ground. It is our heritage. We want to turn it over to our sons who want to farm. We're not big farmers. We're small farmers, and they want to come in and ruin the ground.
You mentioned about being, I believe, was it a half mile from Dow's and the community pool and so forth. Do you have any other concerns with the safety hazard of the CO2 pipeline, hazardous pipeline?
I have a lot of concerns with it. From my understanding, they do not want to release the plume study, I believe I heard last week when Summit was testifying, because of terrorist activity, but yet they want to run that pipeline through our ground, and we don't even know where the turn-off stations or whatever are going to be. We don't know. To my knowledge, we've never been told if they're going to be on our land, our neighbor's land, but it wouldn't take a rocket scientist for someone to know that there's hazardous something in that pipe that they could access. And so if it's bad enough they don't want terrorists to look at this plume study that landowners can't even look at, or emergency personnel, then why are we even talking about it? Anything with hazardous or critical, I want nothing to do with.
Are you aware of Mr. Dillon gave a testimony last week about the control center being in Ames, inhumanly 365/7. Does that cause any issue with you?
Yes, Ames is a good 45 to 55 minutes away. By the time, if there really is going to be a human there 24/7 and on holidays and everything, by the time that detects a break and they get someone called and someone gets to our place, that plume, especially if there's a wind, which I know we have a lot of wind, there's going to be people that are dying. If you're not able to walk out of the plume on your own, you're not going to be able to drive out. And that concerns me that they are so far away. If they want it, why don't they put their control center right by the pipeline? Why is it clear down in Ames? It would have been made more sense to have it right up here, right by it, so they could see and they could get to the break quicker.
Do you know if there are any standards concerning safety for shut-off valves? And
I haven't heard any standards. I know FEMA is still deliberating on the pipeline, the safety concerns, and I feel that, this is being rushed through before they make a decision on what safety could be taken, because I'm sure they would probably have to change some routing or some mechanisms on the pipeline.
thank you, Mrs. Stuck.
Thank you.
Ms. Kaufman?
Yes, I was just wondering, you testified that you know that the IUB has a lot of power to grant eminent domain.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware that it also has a lot of responsibilities and then this is from the website, that the IUB regulates utilities to ensure that reasonably priced, environmentally responsible, safe utility services are available to all Iowans. So my question is, do you believe that the IUB is ensuring that this pipeline is environmentally responsible and safe, and that it is a public utility?
I sure hope so. I hope that they are looking at all of that. I hope Summit is not pushing them like they did our Board of Supervisors in our counties. When our Board of Supervisors tried to make us safe, the Summit representatives were there saying, if you do this, we're going to sue you. And everybody knows Summit has attorneys a mile high. They can afford that. They have deep pockets. We don't, and the counties don't. So the counties back off rather than trying to get into a expensive situation. So I do hope that the Iowa Utilities Board is looking at this as a safety issue, and would they want their family living next to this pipeline put themselves in our shoes, and would they want their land stolen from them? Because I know some of them have farming background, and so they know how important the land is to us. And this is for private gain. This is not a public utility. When Mr. Powell was up here and he kept repeating that natural gas is more dangerous than this carbon pipeline. Natural gas is a public utility. People use that. And yes, natural gas is dangerous. It does explode. But farming is dangerous. Anything we do is dangerous. But this carbon pipeline has no public resource. No one else is going to use it but Summit to collect the tax credits. That is our tax money that they're stealing our land to put their pipe in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. You just mentioned the concept of hope. You hope the IUB would do the right thing. You hope Summit would do the right thing. Would you agree that the concept of hope is based on some unknown events in the future that may or may not take place?
Oh, I do. Yes.
And so let's talk about what has taken place in terms of Summit's resume to date. You had said that one of their land agents told you she had to hand deliver the easement proposal to you. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you at any time find out that that's in fact a lie?
I didn't find that out, but I assumed it was because just about everything they told us had been lies. And every meeting we go to, there's a different story, or there's this, well, I have to check with this person, much like their testimony last week. Well, I can't answer that because that's not my level of expertise. So anything they say, I just assume is a lie. Just like our city council, I went and had them write a letter to the IUB to object to the pipeline being so close, and they wanted to table it, and they brought in some Summit representatives the next meeting. Everything they said, she said Sartassia was blown way out of proportion. No one died. No one went to the hospital. So I just assumed it was a lie, but I let her leave it. She put it on the step.
And then you had mentioned that there was a meeting, was it a Board of Supervisors meeting where Summit representatives said you better sign voluntarily because you're going to have no say otherwise?
Yes, it was the Wright County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay. And you were personally present and heard?
I was personally present because on the video you can hear me in the background say blackmail.
Okay. And you don't seem to be like someone that would take kindly to those kind of threats.
No, I don't. No.
You had talked about that your, I believe, volunteer firefighters would have to set up a boundary, or the first responders would have to set up a boundary and wait for hazmat. Are you aware if Summit has provided information of the distance of what that boundary would need to be?
No, they don't know the distance because they don't know how far the plume will travel. They don't know the wind velocity, how far the wind will go. In cold, we asked them at the Dow City Council meeting, they were asked about cold weather because apparently this liquid has to stay at 88 degrees. How are they going to keep that at 88 degrees? And when it breaks in cold weather, what are you going to do? How far does it travel? Where does it go? And they had no answers.
Does it concern you that Summit refuses to this day to release any of the hazard distance information and the safety information relative to its pipeline?
Absolutely. I don't understand the reasoning, other than it's something so scary they don't want people to know about it.
Have you formed any opinions of whether or not it's in the public convenience and necessity for this board to permit a company that continually misleads, lies, and deceives Iowans?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Have you formed any opinions whether or not it's in the public convenience and necessity for this board to grant a permit to Summit based upon the history of their continuing lying, threatening, deceiving the public?
No, it is not necessary. There are two companies that want to come to Iowa and capture the carbon on site. One company will just take up an acre of land at the ethanol plant. And I personally do not believe we need to capture carbon at all. If you want to capture carbon, plant more trees. Our crops need carbon. We need carbon. I know Bruce Rastetter has several fields. Take a field and plant a bunch of trees. That'll capture the carbon naturally. So yes, I have formed an opinion that it is not necessary. It is not convenient at all.
And then my last question, you had mentioned a Summit representative said that the Sartassia incident was blown way out of proportion and no one died. So essentially, don't worry about that. Was that kind of your takeaway?
It was. She also said that no one went to the hospital. And she was kind of right. No one went to the local hospital because they did not know how to treat this situation. So they had to take them to another hospital. I pulled up an article after she got done talking and read the article to the board that they were taken to the hospital, and a lot of these people have COPD, asthma, lung problems, brain fog. They have nobody died, but they have a lot of problems now that they didn't have before this incident.
And are you aware that that was a 24-inch pipeline, exactly the diameter of what Summit proposes an up to distance on your ground.
I do. I saw that in the easement, yes. And anything that breaks that's that size is going to push out a lot of product. And especially, I believe their stations are going to be, was it 20 miles or 10 miles? I don't remember which. But that's going to be a lot of product once they shut that off to be pushed out of there. As the gentleman that was here talking about the break in Mississippi, you know, it started, was it 7 p.m. and went till the next day. What happens if it happens at night and everybody's in bed? They just won't wake up. I mean, it's terrifying if you're going to be by this pipeline.
How many hundreds of hours do you estimate you've spent learning about this and dealing with Summit and attending county meetings?
A lot. I know my husband is ready for this to be over with too. We just want the permit denied so we can get back to our normal lives. I have spent a lot of time on this. As you can see by the paperwork, and this is not all of it that I have had. This is stuff that I've gotten from Summit, from everything, my research.
And you're indicating a few inches of paperwork in front of you there.
Yes, and this is not all of it. That I left the other stuff at home that I had printed off. This is their offers they made, and the offers were even different. We've gotten 3 different offers, and they've basically tripled the amount of money they're offering us. And they don't understand it's not about money. We're farmers. We don't want the money. And I'm afraid if they open this Pandora's box, we have developers out there that are watching this. We have a lot of undeveloped land in Iowa, and that's all they see. This is the breadbasket of Iowa. We are the breadbasket of the country where we produce the food. And developers see it as dollar signs. And if they allow eminent domain for a private company, what's next?
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. Ms. Greenhagen, did you have a clarification? Okay, just checking. Okay, Ms. Stuck, you can redirect yourself, which means clarify only based on the questions that you've been asked today.
Would it count if I clarify something that Summit has done to a map that they submitted to the IUB?
That would be additional.
So I can't say that. It will just kind of show how.
If you were one of the attorneys in the room, that would be a
But
hard
I am my attorney.
No, Ms. Stuck, just give me a second. All right. The attorneys in the room like to push the limits every chance they get. So we're making it clear. I know you do too, and that's okay. With the landowners, we're going to have a little bit of gray area and a little bit of leeway.
Okay.
Just making it very clear that to the members of the bar in this room, that if you need to do a little clarification from a landowner, we'll let that slide. But if you're a member of the bar, it's not going to slide.
Well,
So go ahead and let it slide.
Okay, thank you. This map out of Franklin County came through on September 7th of 23. They show that a landowner that I am personally friends with is a businessman in Dow's. They show that he signed an easement, when in fact he was served an Exhibit H, and then the Exhibit H was pulled. And what they did is they moved the pipeline off of his property. But on the map, they still show that he has signed an easement. So I don't understand why they can show that he has signed an easement when he has not. Does that include there's so many easements that have been signed? And I have a copy of the map right here if you'd like it. And I did get permission that he could.
Was the map filed?
Yes, it was.
Okay, do you know when?
It was filed. Well, this one I printed off was filed September 7th, 23.
Hold on.
And it was Franklin County.
Objection, Your Honor.
State the objection.
Mischaracterizes the map. The map simply means, the green simply means that the Exhibit H is withdrawn. It doesn't characterize why it was withdrawn. So that map does not necessarily represent or assert that it represents that that's a voluntary. It just, the procedure on those maps ongoing, as I think board staff is at least aware, has been read as outstanding Exhibit H's, and we were asked to leave changes on those maps going forward. So green is simply withdrawn for whatever reason.
Well, normally you
Okay,
turn it
Ms. Stuck,
purple.
Ms. Stuck, Ms. Stuck. No, we'll get you through it. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Mr. Dubinsky. Objections noted. And just to clarify, Mr. Dubinsky, you were objecting to the statement, not to the actual map, correct? To the characterization of the map.
Well, I think because the characterization is incorrect, the point of putting the map back up and discussing it is irrelevant.
Okay. Okay. What's that? Okay, can you walk us through what you were explaining? So, we're going to need you to use.
Oh, I get to use this.
Well, you don't have to use that. More importantly, we need you to use descriptive words.
Okay. I had called and he said I could say it's Shannon Mullenbrook. It's the parcel. It's the green parcel. Oh, it's the first green parcel on the line, actually, from the northwest. And I guess it does make a difference. I know it does make a difference to a landowner because he did not sign, and he told the land agent right at the beginning he was not going to sign because he has a lot of customers that do not want to sign, as you can see in the red marks, and he has a business in town. So when they turned this green, it looks like he signed, and he was not happy about that. He sent you guys an objection, and it still has not been changed. If they can change the route for that.
Okay, thank you.
Same objection, Your Honor. I think if you zoom back out a little bit, the information up in the upper left there in the upper right in the legend suggests that purple is newly withdrawn, green is previously withdrawn. Again, it doesn't characterize the why. This appears to be just resolution of a corner clip, which I suspect may have been in response to the staff report or staff review.
Thank you. Objection noted. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Marvin leaders who we're going to need to help me get this. So I appreciate it. We've done really well for 5 weeks. I know there's a lot of emotion and support, and I very much appreciate that. But we absolutely have to have a record for the court reporter going forward, and every time we clap or make noise or breathe even too heavily into the microphone, it makes it very difficult for our court reporter to record exactly what's going on. The record is critical for everyone going forward to make a decision. So just beg you to refrain. Marvin, leaders for Laudomaco Incorporated. Sorry if I'm... No? Okay.